The Halloween sequel slash reboot that came out in 2018 was one of my very favorite movies of that entire year. From the opening credit sequence to the music to the performances to the story, it was competent and confident filmmaking at its best. It was a great way to encapsulate everything we love about Halloween and put it in a movie and make it a sequel to the original that ignored everything else. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. And then we got Halloween Kills last year, which I thought mostly sucked. And now we have Halloween Ends, which wraps up this 3-film trilogy. And let's talk about what I think. Thank you so much for checking out the video. But before we get started, click on that red subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you know whenever I post a new piece of content. Oh boy, I got some things to say about this one. Full of spoilers. I gotta spoil the hell out of this movie. Can't talk about it otherwise. There's no other way for me to do this, so let's spoil this thing. Here's what I liked. I liked Laurie Strode's place in this movie. I liked where she was. I liked the idea of Laurie moving on. And I think the time jump to 4 years later helps that. I like that she has basically like embraced this grandmotherly role and finds herself in what is a good spot. She seems to kind of deep down understand that maybe eventually Michael will come, but like bunker down. She didn't build 1982 classic, one of the best horror movies ever made. I like the reference. That is also a throwback reference. The scene had a lot of potential here. It really did. It set up a story that could have gone well and just did. The last 15 minutes of this movie. That's it. I like the last 15 minutes, and everything else that came before it I thought was garbage. I think some people hated the ending. I thought it was fine. But everything else is what I'm going to talk about next, which is the stuff I didn't like. The biggest problem that this movie has is that it's essentially a hoodwink. Friday the 13th Part 5, which I think came out in 1985, essentially was a huge marketing hoodwink that was pulled on the audience. The character of Jason is nowhere to be found in that movie. Jason is dead, he's gone, and he's replaced by a copycat killer, but that's not revealed until the very last 2 scenes of the movie. When Roy Burns is revealed to be the killer just wearing a variant of the Jason hockey mask. And that's it, and it pissed a lot of people off, and for good reason. Nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted to see that. And so that's why people hated it. This movie does basically the same thing, except it's transparent about it from day one. This movie is not about Michael Myers. Michael Myers has maybe 10 minutes of screen time here. So it's a story about Corey, who is a teenager who accidentally kills a little boy on Halloween night 4 years ago, so in 2018. That's the opening scene of the movie, and it has a ton of potential. They could have weaved that throughout the main storyline, like this idea of Corey maybe becoming this darker version of himself that could become a serial killer. Like, I like that concept. And they kind of tackled that in the 2018 movie with the doctor, who is like so obsessed with Michael Myers that he wants to become him at one point in the movie. And so they've touched on this before. This isn't the first time we've had something like this happen in these movies, in this particular trilogy. But here, it's the main plot. It is the entire plot. And it sucks. And it's really unfortunate because the movie was billed and it was sold to us as the finale between Laurie and Michael. And I think the filmmakers wanted to do something less cheesy. And I don't know if cheesy is the right word. I think they wanted to do something less like predictable. And they did. And it sucks, and nobody wants to see this. Nobody wants to see a Michael Myers copycat killer. Because Corey goes into these like subterranean tunnels underneath Haddonfield. It's really just a friggin' ditch. And he goes in there and he like has this confrontation with Michael, where Michael like sees the darkness in his eyes, and Corey basically has to drag him out of the sewer and like bring back the thirst for blood or whatever. It's all stupid and none of it worked. It could have worked if they had made it the B plot and ran it along the main storyline. Maybe it could have lasted like 15, 20 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes. But we don't even see Michael until halfway into this movie. And he's like a complete shell of himself until the very end when he and Lori finally fight in Lori's new house, and then they put an end to him. And none of it works. Corey is an extremely unlikable character. He's basically like your stereotype domestic abuser. He even has a line where he says, he's talking about Allison, and he says, if I can't have her, no one can. And then at the end of the movie, he stabs himself in the neck and basically kills himself. And that's like, you want to make a sympathetic version of this character, make a sympathetic version of this character, but you made a guy that I spent the whole movie hating and was the villain, and then he dies at the end, and then it's like, okay, we're going to tack on Michael Myers for 15 minutes. Michael has so little screen time in this movie, it's embarrassing. For all intents and purposes, he's not in the movie until they just bring him out to kill him. And it's a real shame because this had a ton of potential. And I think if they were more upfront in the beginning with audiences about what this movie was going to be, I think people would have maybe given them a little bit of rope. But here, they were dishonest about what type of movie this is. And they thought we were all going to come in and be like, oh man, look at how they subverted our expectations a la The Last Jedi. You didn't do that. You made a dumpster fire of a movie that sucks and nobody likes. I don't know anybody that likes this movie. I got multiple messages and DMs and conversations from people and texts from people who straight up said, you are going to hate this movie because it's just one big mess and it's not a Halloween movie. And this is not a Halloween movie. It's just not. It is a catastrophic misfire. And it's the opposite of what the 2018 movie was. That movie knew exactly what it wanted to be. It was confident. It was lean. It was a slasher flick. Halloween Kills did a lot of the same, but it also was way too bloated with subplot. And it tried to do like this whole like evil dies tonight thing that tied back to the original characters, and just that didn't work at all. And this movie is just it's 10 times worse. It's 10 times more of a mistake. And I'm really bummed. I'm really bummed because the 2018 film was so freaking good, and now they've just left such a bad taste in my mouth. I'm wondering what they're going to do next. They're going to do some sort of reboot, and are they going to screw it up just like they did with this one, where they make this awesome movie and then just run into the ground with bad ideas? And John Carpenter was involved in this movie. He's an executive producer. He was involved in the entire trilogy from top to bottom. He did a lot of the music. I'm sure he helped with the story concept. And it's really a bummer. So Carpenter is capable of much better, including a movie I've referenced, The Thing. The original Halloween is a masterpiece. I love his version of Christine, based on the Stephen King novel. And yeah, really bummed it Halloween Ends, because this was not the way to do it. This was definitely not the way to do it. Thank you so much for checking out the video. If you liked it, found it helpful, consider subscribing. You can also like and share the channel. That tells the powers that be that it's worth promoting. And follow me on my Instagram, @HometownZero. That's all spelled out one word. And let me know what you think in the comments. Man, I would love to hear people's feedback on this one. I think it sucks and is garbage. Let me know what you think. See you next Wednesday at 9 a.m.